I remember Shahid Azmi's mother came to the shoot and she saw Rajkumar and she almost fainted. And she said, my son doesn't look like this. He looks like Fardeen Khan. You know.
When I got this role, it was like a dream come true because I've never played a main protagonist. I searched online what exactly had happened, who was this girl who was put behind bars and all that I did. And then when I met Hansal sir, when I got the script, everything was so beautifully written.
Luckily, I mostly choose stories of ordinary people.
Yeah.
And their ordinariness gives me the chance to interpret the character more freely. And there was a lot of back and forth with Netflix also.
It's a funny story.
On who it should be. And then I suddenly kept looking at Harman. He had grown a moustache, he had this scraggly beard. So I messaged Mukesh in front of Harman that this guy looks right.
The breaking down of the character and breaking down of women in a way that you're a strong person and the system is going to try and break you down as much as possible. That I think comes out because you have a lot of women editors and journalists.
Being in that position of power, you are constantly dealing with a moral and ethical and political dilemma. You know, it's important to see flaws with empathy. I don't see flaws with a judgmental eye. The judiciary and journalism, I call them the two J's, judiciary and journalism, they are the only two pillars on which an entire system, an entire democracy can actually survive.
You know, every time I was going on the set, each day I was learning so much, which is such a good thing for an actor. I just manifested and I just left it to God, and Hansal sir just happened to me. It's like a blessing which just fell in my lap.
So today we have with us the part of the team behind the new Netflix show Scoop. We have director Hansal Mehta and Karishma Tanna, who's playing the protagonist of the show. Welcome to Newslaundry.
Thank you.
And Hansal is an old friend of Newslaundry, so
yes.
He's been
in many ways.
In many ways.
Yes.
And in many conversations have been had already. So the show is based on journalist Jigna Vora's book, which is Behind Bars in Byculla, My Days in Prison. This is for people who are younger. A lot of our viewers and listeners are much younger than I am, for sure. This is in 2011 when Dawood Abraham and Chota Rajan were very much in the news. There was a very well-known crime editor called J Dey, who was the editor investigations of Midday, and he was killed pretty much near his house in Hiranandani, Powai.
Correct.
And the blame was, the person who was arrested for this was Jigna Vora, who was the deputy editor of Asian Age for crime. She was
one of the persons arrested.
One of the people arrested, but it was shocking at that time. And just, it was within a span of a few months after his murder that pretty much the case was closed. And she served 7 years in prison and then was no more?
7 months in prison.
7 months in prison.
Nine months. She served 9 months in prison and she was acquitted after 7 years.
Oh, she was acquitted after 7 years and she wrote this book, which is what the show is based on. So I just wanted to ask you what attracted. I'm a big crime buff and I had followed this story with great interest at that time. It was 10 years into my career in journalism and I had lived in Bombay. And anyway, Dawood and Chota Rajan and all, it was all over the news all the time. You couldn't have enough of it, pretty much. And what attracted you to the story first, Hansal, and then Karishma, I want you. It's such a great role. I don't know why you wouldn't do it, of course. But even then, Hansal, what is it that...
The book is basically a prison memoir.
Yeah.
You know, but I also followed the case at that time and I was really fascinated that, I mean, how come? You know, she's such an unlikely conspirer in this murder. Also, I mean, what is the connection? That, you know, why is something as flimsy as, you know, giving his bike number and his residential address to Chota Rajan. I mean, you know, he has ways of finding out.
Which is, it's
yeah,
a bike
you don't
number.
need to call a crime reporter to find out. So those things, you know, those questions, and then, you know, Makoka.
That's what
You know,
she was
that
booked under Makoka.
Under Makoka, which I've always, I mean, these draconian laws have always troubled me. That, you know, they put citizens, particularly the free press, at threat.
Yeah.
Always. You know, they, it was something that plagued me then, and I felt that, you know, there was a potential to go beyond the book, beyond a prison memoir, to explore that who this person was. You know, she was an ordinary girl.
And she was young then, right? This is
young.
2011. She would have been what, 30 or less? I think she.
I'm not that rude.
I remember. I can ask these questions. No, she was very. I remember in the news reports that you were seeing her pictures and all.
Yeah, she was very young.
It was a very young woman who, and it just seemed absurd that why would you even do this? And what you're being accused of is such a, as you said.
And I wanted to find out who she was. I mean, even then, I was intrigued. You know, who is she? I asked some journalist friends that, you know, who was she? So she was a reporter, crime reporter. She was a deputy bureau chief here. And, you know, it was very casual, the entire. And she's a normal girl. She lives in Ghatkopar. So I thought I wanted to explore her journey leading into this whole imprisonment, and that sort of excited me. I was not really just keen on a pure prison drama, which is why we decided that we wanted to fictionalize the story, and, you know, sort of tell a cautionary tale of our times. You know, go beyond just a biography or a documentation of true events, and you know, turn it into a larger cautionary drama of our times.
Yeah. You had heard of this case before. You're from Bombay?
I'm from Mumbai, yes.
So this was all over the news, especially
Yes, it
in
was.
Bombay. And Karishma's, your career has been earlier in TV with one of the biggest shows, Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi, which changed I think, the graph of television in India. And is this your first big TV show which is not a traditional Hindi soap? It's as far removed from a soap as possible, right?
Yes, so I have not done a typical daily soap, even if you see Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Thi. It was a generation jump. That's when the younger generation had come. So I've not
But okay,
so I've not done like a Saas Bahu drama show ever. I've been a part of television for a very long time, and when I got this role, it was like a dream come true, because I've never played a main protagonist in the fields of journalism. I hardly know about you know, crime reporting and all that. Of course, 2011, when I was working and I had heard about this, that, you know, J Dey was shot dead, shot in broad daylight, and it was like a big thing, you know. And when I got this role, I searched online what exactly had happened, who was this girl who was put behind bars, and all that I did. And then when I met Hansal sir, when I got the script, everything was so beautifully written in the script, which, you know, made it easy for me to perform and understand the character better.
And did you work on, for both of you, did you work with Jigna on aspects, or did you meet her at all?
Not before the show. Sir was very clear that, you know, you get your character in the character.
I wanted to interpret it freely.
Yeah. Okay. So we met her during the end of the shoot, actually, the end schedule. She had come on the set. She got us food from her house because we were shooting in Ghatkopar.
Okay.
So she was very overwhelmed. I was very overwhelmed to, you know, meet her and see that, you know, this is the part I'm playing, inspired by the book. So it was very emotional for her to meet us, and it was I was in awe, like, I'm meeting her, you know. So it was a good experience.
You had not met her also during
No, I have a theory on research. I don't participate in the research. It sort of clouds my execution of the dramatic aspect of the show. So I let the writers, so my co-creator Mrunmayee and her team actually had an entire they had Deepu Sebastian, who is an Indian Express reporter, who was also a character in Rajkumar Rao played him in Aligarh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Deepu was the lead researcher on
which is
this
why
show.
you've got a lot of the journalism. I was going to tell you that how
so
a
there was
newspaper
also
works.
Jigna Pathak, who is my director, he's my DA, and he was part of the room. He was part of the whole Mumbai tabloid industry. So he also he'd been through that entire grind. So he sort of helped us understand the world. Like Deepu was a very serious field reporter. Like you would find Deepu going to Jamtara, the Netflix show, is based on a Deepu Sebastian story. Professor Siras's story in Aligarh was a Deepu break. So Deepu spoke to Jigna, Deepu spoke to policemen, to a number of people, and he gave that material to Mrunmayee.
Okay.
And Mrunmayee sort of then, built on that material, created the drama. And I told Mrunmayee, once you're ready with the drama, I will interpret that. I am leaving the authenticity of the drama to you, the research to you. I will not get bogged down by it, because research can be daunting.
Meeting someone who is alive, who a show is based on, and it can sometimes, I would think, color. Like when you're essaying the character also, it gets into your head, then I know the person also.
And I also believe, interpretation is, you have to interpret the character in your own way.
Yeah.
Like in Scam, Pratik Gandhi did not really...
Which is one of my favorite shows.
He did not
Mine
copy.
too.
Yeah.
He did not copy Harshad Mehta. He just noticed that Harshad had a small, slightly crooked smile. So he picked that up. So a small nuance that he picked up, and that was it. Beyond that, it was interpreted.
Also, I think normally though in your, I've pretty much seen almost all of your work, including Khana Khazana, which by the way, I'm a big food buff, but that I didn't know had anything to do with you till I had done my research. But almost all your shows, your characters tend to look like the actual characters. It's only in Scam 1992, I always said, Pratik Gandhi is the best looking version of Harshad Mehta we've seen.
None of my characters look like the real ones actually. When I made Shahid, I remember Shahid Azmi's mother came to the shoot and she saw Rajkumar and she almost fainted. And she said, my son doesn't look like this. He looks like Fardeen Khan. So Professor Siras, was a very different looking man. Manoj made him a little more sexy.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think physical likeness is overrated, and
Which
physical
is in Scam 1992, the fact that he looks so different to Harshad, but that character,
the character has to be more.
Yeah.
You see, physical likeness is important when you're making something about a historical figure. Say I'm making a biography of Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yeah.
I must have somebody who reminds you, because his pictures are all over the place.
Yeah.
There's too much of recorded,
to be able to do that suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, that suspension of disbelief becomes very difficult then, to achieve. So luckily I mostly choose stories of ordinary people.
Yeah.
And their ordinariness gives me the chance to interpret the character more freely.
But speaking of the casting, I have to say, I'm Bengali, so of course saying Proshenjit makes me very happy immediately. But he really fits the character also, that underplaying of... there's something which seems a little ominous sometimes, but then it seems like he's just very serious about his work. His character, the casting of him as J Dey, over here as Jagruti Sen.
Jagruti Sen.
Jagruti Sen. Your casting, the fact that... so I thought it's a real cool to have Harman Baweja. But Harman is just brilliant. Who would think that? And which is when you realize that with a, like, you have to be directed well, because I've seen that film which he'd done, two films I think he'd done earlier. His acting is very different there and over here, but
I think it's a lot to do with the environment that you create for the actors. It's unfair to judge an actor by a certain performance, because you do certain things with certain pressures. And Harman came into this with no expectation.
you auditioned him for this role?
No, I did not audition him. Harman. Harman was producing a film that I was directing, and we were in a casting meeting with Mukesh Chabra for that film. And we were struggling with this Harshvardhan Shroff's character. We were not able to get the right person to play this part. You know, and there was a lot of back and forth with Netflix also.
It's a funny story.
On who it should be. And then I suddenly kept looking at Harman. He had grown a moustache, he had this scraggly beard. So I messaged Mukesh in front of Harman that this guy looks right. We were not focusing on that casting, that this guy looks right for the part. So he says, yeah, will he do it? So I said, yeah, let's see. And then I started taking his picture. And Harman was wondering, he says, why are you taking my picture? I said, yeah, just like that. And then I spoke to him. So Harman also, I mean, he's been through his own highs and, you know, major lows. And he's been through a journey. He sort of left acting, you know, almost 10 to 11 years ago.
Yeah, it would be a while.
He did not want to take it up again. He was more focused. He still is more focused on production and writing. And he was reluctant to sort of be drawn back into this world. But after he was convinced, I mean, it was quite a blast, because he came he had nothing to lose anymore.
Any baggage also?
No, there was no baggage, nothing to lose. And I always tell actors who work with me that you have nothing to lose. You know, the guy who has anything to lose is me, and I don't give a unprintable F.
We say a lot of those.
I don't give a
My co-host is known for saying a lot of this. No, so I have to say that the casting of the characters, and because I've been in news, I used to work at the Telegraph and I've worked at Indian Express and all. When you're part of a newsroom, that is what, like, the people you meet, it's not usually you will see, which is also why Jigna's character was so interesting, that a female crime reporter was so out of the ordinary that someone had made it so far in her career. She had become deputy editor. At that time, I don't really see crime reporting as such in the same vein as it was at that point, that she made it that far. And dealing with the underworld is very different.
It's also because her editor at that time was an ex-crime reporter.
Yeah.
You know, so
that
it
also
sort of helped he sort of connected with Jagruti, you know, to actually have her in that position.
Yeah, because there have been lots of shows and films, Hindi shows and films on the media, and sometimes, you know, anyone who's from the media, you're like, what are they showing? No one behaves like this in the media. Yeah. Over here, it gets that newsroom, the meetings, the way the insecurity. So I think something very important that this
the overlapping.
There's chaos. It's not smooth.
It's not smooth, and also this thing of a strong woman personality in any career field, or is always you would think she would not be a threat, but you realize even in this, when you watch this show, that what were the factors which led to Jigna Vora, Jagruti, being targeted as she is the person who we need to blame for all things. A large part was because she was such a strong female character. And while it's fine that she can do the work, it's her behavior doesn't meet with what you expect women to behave like. So I think that, because that gave you a lot of like the essaying of the character from being so strong to when you go to prison.
Correct.
The breaking down of the character and breaking down of women in a way that you're a strong person and the system is going to try and break you down as much as possible. That I think comes out because you have a lot of women
I'm so glad
editors
that
and
comes out.
journalists.
Yeah, and you have, it's also shadowed through Ida Dubey's character.
Yeah.
Pushkar's wife, you know, so
parallelly working.
she's sort of parallelly actually verbalizing the plight
Yeah.
of a woman at the workplace. A strong woman is always perceived as a threat,
Yeah.
you know, and you know Tanishta's character.
Tanishta, I was going to say
verbalizes
Tanishta.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that she is also a very strong personality.
Yeah, yeah.
Clearly, she's an editor at the end of the day. But that while she sees the value in your character of having her maybe on board in her paper, it's still, you're still a threat. At the end of the day, you are on the men are not as much considered as much of a threat
Yes.
as another woman. So that comes through very clearly and very well. So I think more than the prison part is, I'm assuming, so it's a 6-part.
It's very powerful. The prison part, when you see it,
Yeah.
it's very powerful. It's also, you know, it's a systematic breaking down of a girl's aspiration, her life. A single mother.
Yeah.
A single mother. What does she want? She wants that house, you know. So that one breath of fresh air that she takes when she stands outside
Yeah.
this fictional house that she believes is going to be hers. I mean, that's all she wanted. That fresh air, just standing in that balcony, surrounded by concrete,
Yeah.
a concrete jungle. That's all she wanted, and the system actually denied her that.
Yeah, and almost works towards breaking down the person.
The
that
person,
till
yeah.
the person is broken down totally, and it doesn't happen to the male characters. That's the best part. I wanted to ask you, this is something that I've seen across various series which are based on real life characters, that some of the characters are not real, they are fictional characters in this. So I don't know this detail that much. Deepa is the your colleague in the newspaper. Is that a real character or is that a fictionalization?
Well, it's a mix. It's a composite. It's a composite of multiple characters like that, because you know there was a time when she realized that you know her own colleagues were reporting on her.
Yeah.
I mean, the reporter became the reported, and they were all doing their job. So Deepa says the same thing. She says, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah, and
And, you
trying
know,
to get ahead as well.
Yeah, and also, I mean, she said Jagruti would have done exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, my mentor would have done the same thing. She would have reported this. So, she's also, I mean, she's a composite. She's not one single character that has inspired Deepa's character.
Do you think you are going to get any sort of backlash from the cops? Because the police have not been shown in a particularly favorable
I don't
light.
know. I, in fact, I feel that we have humanized them to a great extent. They come across, you know, with all their flaws. You see that, being in that position of power, you are constantly dealing with a moral and ethical and political dilemma. You don't know, you know, you are at the
which
mercy.
factors are...
You're at the mercy. There's the fourth estate that is questioning you. There is the establishment that is asking you to go a certain way, and it's your job to actually maintain law and order, to keep the city safe. Now, in that, you do things that are not exactly white, but I mean, you're trying your best to do the job of keeping the city safe.
No, and there is that pressure which I don't think which you get through in a kind manner in this series, that the pressures that are there on the police, on a DG, on DCPs, and because we just keep, he is just taking money, and that there are so many pressures on your head and so many masters to answer
and
to.
also, I mean, how much they are sensitive to the media.
Yeah.
You know, you see them, you know, the commissioner of police, the two JCPs, you see them in front of the TV. And, you know, he just turns around and says, you know, this is going to blow up and they're going to piss all over us.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, they are constantly under fire.
Yeah.
You know, so
which comes through very clearly.
So there's, you know, it's important to see flaws with empathy. I don't see flaws with a judgmental eye.
So one thing is there that almost, but this is across all your films and shows also, that there's no black and white character. They are grey characters. You get that human part of the thing, of the characters. I wanted to ask you what, so in the last 2 episodes, I've watched 4 episodes. I still
Did you
think
like
you
it?
should have sent all 6, but still. No, so I really liked it. And I liked there were various aspects I liked. I think also we'll get to the last 2 episodes. I wanted to ask you this because I don't know whether it's just my point of view, that earlier, even traditional, what we call legacy media, was very critical of the powers that be. And you don't see that for some reason anymore. So even when questioning the cops, whether reporting on what is happening, was people were willing to take risks and all. Now you see that with independent media, of course, does it. But do you see that shift, or is it that...
You see, there's a larger comment which is about how the judiciary and journalism, I call them the 2 J's, judiciary and journalism, they are the only 2 pillars on which an entire system, an entire democracy can actually survive. And if one goes slightly lopsided, you will have an uneven, or you'll almost live in an undemocracy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the larger comment, that a compromised press is so detrimental to the growth of democracy. Fortunately, I mean, the independent media, there are checks and balances, but I wish it was larger, that that the press did what it was supposed to do, to speak to the people and to the people in power truthfully.
Because I think that has changed for sure. So what, in the last 2 episodes, the focus is on the time in Byculla?
There's a lot more. I mean, there's a lot more. I mean, I would say it's a roller coaster. It's a journey through Byculla and the people that she meets there.
Yeah. Oh, my co-actors have been amazing, and the whole experience in jail was so emotionally draining, at the same time challenging, because you actually, the set was so beautifully made that you actually feel that you're in the jail. And plus there are so many people under trial, who are put behind bars with me in the same room with kids and all that. So the ambience, the vibe was so real, and the co-actors made it so easy for us to perform and get the right emotion which we were supposed to get it, in the camera. It was outstanding. It was every time I was going on the set, each day I was learning so much, which is such a good thing for an actor.
And in the role, in your entire role in the series, which part did you find more difficult or more challenging to
I think the newsroom, because...
Really? I thought you were going to say the prison part.
Prison was emotionally challenging. The newsroom was because it was very informative dialogues I had, and I had to be very,
and
convincing.
deliver them correctly.
So I had to every incident I was talking, I was actually seeing online when did it happen and all that, because, these blast and this and that. So it was very informative. So I can't go wrong. I have to say the way it was done, So, and also the overlapping, the chaos which was there with all the colleagues, and that convincing of the editor, so all these things were very nice and authoritative behavior to Deepa. So it was challenging for me. That part was very challenging, and also it was the first schedule of the shoot. So it was we were getting into
Did you all shoot it chronologically?
Yeah, we
No,
did.
kind of, but what happens is you go location wise. That our budgetary constraints don't allow us to shoot like Kurosawa. But you basically in the newsroom we actually witnessed almost the entire show. So in those 7 days of shoot, we actually saw the entire graph. So it is tough but luckily we did workshops, we did readings, so we all knew where we were going to land eventually.
And how long did the entire workshop and shoots, the entire thing?
Well, we've nurtured this for 3 years. This began pre-pandemic in 2020, a few weeks before the pandemic hit us, and Netflix came on board in 2020 and have nurtured it ever since with us. Mrunmayee Lagu, my co-creator, came on board around the same time.
Okay.
And I mean, we shot for half of last year.
Also around 6 months, which is still not
Jan to June.
that much.
June, I think we wrapped on the 5th of June.
Correct.
With a party, and that was the last day I smoked a cigarette.
Well, that's why you remember it so
Very, very clearly.
fondly. I was wondering.
Because my non-smoking anniversary is
Coming soon.
we are a few weeks away. It's 3 days after the show
You'll be
releases.
able to work on a show without smoking? I feel.
I did a film without smoking. I just finished a film, and
I
it
want to
was-
congratulate you also.
I mean, 30 years of being on sets.
And you
the
cold
first
turkeyed.
First time.
This
I-
has nothing to do with the show, I know, but I always find it very impressive when I
Impressive.
hear
The first
people
time
cold.
I always gave up and then started smoking on set, but this was.
Okay, so I wanted to ask two questions I have so that we don't ramble. One is that with these OTT platforms coming up, there is, of course, a lot more opportunity for creative storytelling than cinemas only had. But there's a flip side that cinemas are also seeing. PVR has just announced 50 theatres are going to be shut. And because you also have a very strong TV background, do you think that what do you think of this new world of OTT that we
I
have?
think it's a blessing for TV actors and film actors. Film actors are also very proudly coming on OTT platform and acting because, there is some weightage to this platform. So for us from TV who wants to grow in life, who wants to learn different things and want to work with the best of directors and producers, I think it's a very good platform because when OTT was not there in the picture, I was struggling to get into films, and there was like a
you
huge
get sort of typecast into
totally typecasted. TV actor, we see you every day on the screen, then why would one take you on a big screen? That was and I couldn't understand the logic that time also, because an actor is an actor. You mold them in any, take a break, give us something, So I have struggled, but that struggle actually taught me a lot. It gave me patience. It helped me to not get into that anxiety, depression mode. It actually motivated me that there is so much to work, and I will work harder and prove everybody that I am capable and I have the ability to do it. And when OTT came, our expectations were growing, and I was like, I would love to work, with the best director and the best platform. And I just manifested and I just left it to God, and Hansal sir just happened to me. It's like a blessing which just fell in my lap.
And for you, because you have cinema, which goes on big screens.
I think there's a recalibration that is happening, on this whole PVR shutting down. I think it's a recalibration. The industry over every decade goes through a period of recalibration. Every industry, it's not only films. It goes through a recalibration, comes back. So we will re-emerge with a newer understanding of audiences and of what we as creators want to give our audiences. There was a huge gap between the audience and the creator, and which came out of making everything. The old formula became too jaded.
Yeah.
And that jaded formula, also the cinema exhibition outlet becoming F&B outlet more than a place for consuming art, became the norm. I mean, so that needed correction, and I think that well-needed correction will happen in due course. And I mean, ultimately, thank God for OTT, because whatever we do, the stories we, especially somebody like me tries to tell, finds an audience there.
Yeah.
You know, like Faraz, the film that I made some time back, was released almost apologetically. It had no theatres. It had shows at midnight, 10:30 p.m. midnight in Delhi. Who goes to the theatres at that time? And nearly just 80 shows around the country. So it did not really do anything theatrically, but moment it dropped on Netflix, it found an audience. It was in the top 10 around the world. It topped the charts in India and Pakistan.
Who would think?
You know, for 3 weeks. It was on top of charts there.
I think it's just
so
given.
It's given us the chance to actually reach an audience. You know, this when people say that, you know, oh, the audience doesn't want to listen to your stories, or doesn't want to listen to the way you see the world. You know, OTT allows us. There is an audience that wants to do that.
And there's an audience, I feel, for pretty much everything. On OTT. You just...
Absolutely.
But I was surprised, I have to say, Air just came out, right? That they released it on Amazon along with, at the same time as the theatres, because I was thinking of going to the theatre, and then I saw that. But I think
it's also the award season business,
so
which comes into play there.
Influences it, right?
Yeah, but...
So what is on the anvil for you next? And then...
I'm just waiting for Scoop to release so I can pick up.
So what is the release date? Let's tell everyone.
2nd June, only on Netflix.
Only on Netflix. And for you?
Well, there's a Mahatma Gandhi, show on Mahatma Gandhi based on Ramchandra Guha's books, which is beginning filming very soon.
Oh, nice.
In a couple of months. Yeah, that is a film due for release, and hopefully Scoop season 2.
Excellent. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the entire thing now, because I've seen 4. And thank you so much for coming and taking out the time and braving the Delhi heat to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Also, while this entire video is for all viewers, to listen to the rest of our podcast episodes, please log on to Newslaundry, subscribe to Newslaundry, and the link is given below as well. And thank you for watching us.
The subscription model is something that keeps Newslaundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free, और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.